You lot.
What do you mean, us lot?
Why are you bringing me into this?
Well, because you were part of it.
Part of what?
2 years ago.
Part of what?
Around a couple of years.
What did I do?
Well, I'm going to tell you in a minute. I'm going to tell you in a minute. A couple of years ago, around roughly in that time frame,
Yep.
you all sat and you had a
Hey, how's Leicester doing?
You had a conversation.
How's Leicester doing?
You had a conversation about an end of an era. Barcelona, end of an era, right?
Yeah.
And now we're having the same conversation when they're still in the title race.
How many Champions League have they won since we had that end of an era discussion?
They're winning the league.
None.
What would Real Madrid rather win this year? I've already asked you that question last week, and you said the league.
What would Barcelona?
So it's good enough for Real Madrid, not good enough for Barcelona.
What would Barcelona prefer to win?
I have no idea.
Of course, it's the Champions League.
I have no idea what I don't know. You said I don't know.
Sid, what do you make of this?
In a way, but in any case, are we not? We're talking. These are kind of two different debates in a way. In that, as Craig, you rightly said, it's 2 years in a row that they've won the league. In part, that suggests that they're not so bad. This ties in with Ali's point that when you've got Messi and when you're winning the league, you can feel like things are okay, and then maybe you don't do some of that housekeeping as well as you should. You don't do some of that planning as well as you should because you rest on your laurels. You rest on the fact that, well, this will be okay. And as I say, these are sort of two different debates. We're not talking about this being a disaster in terms of their league position or a disaster in terms of where their season may end up. Talking about the disaster or the mess they're making of an open pursuit for a striker. Those are not necessarily the same thing. You can be absolutely disastrous and still go and win everything. I mean, it's not necessarily the same argument.
Well, we get that, Sid, but you can't be a disaster and go and win everything. How can you be a disaster?
No, but you can be a disaster in terms of your planning, can't you? You can be a disaster in terms of what you're trying to do now to replace Luis Suarez.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily mean you're a disaster in terms of the 11 players you're going to put on the pitch tomorrow night and the 11 that you're going to put on the pitch at the weekend and the 11 you'll put on the pitch against Napoli in the Champions League when you might beat them. Those are different things. The other thing, of course, is the context of this. And you rightly say, they've won 2 league titles in 2 years. And in a way, that should be enough. It certainly, I think, should be enough for some people to say that these have been 2 successful years. But of course, whether fairly or unfairly, these 2 seasons have been defined by those 2 Champions League exits. Against Rome, maybe can be written off as an accident. Against Liverpool, you can say, well, maybe it's accidental in that had they put away any of the 3 or 4 semi-decent chances they had in the first half, that's it. They probably go on and win the treble. And of course, the treble, you don't get any better than that. But that doesn't disguise the fact that there were flaws there. In fact, some of those flaws came to the surface in that game when they hadn't done previously. But it doesn't mean that they weren't there just because they were winning. Because you could argue that they were winning in spite of their planning, not because of their planning. Quick
one before we do it. Who's favourite to win the Champions League this year still? Man City?
City and Liverpool. Why are you hitting the deck?
Man City.
Why are you hitting the deck?
You're saying me Barcelona can't win the Champions League because they're in disarray. City?
What's this got to do with anything? What's that got to do with Barcelona?
Because I'm pointing out that they've been the favourites to win the Champions League, yet they've got a back line that's all over the place.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
So tell me how much of a difference that is with Barcelona. And you're saying to me earlier, they can't win the Champions League. Are we saying the favourites can't win the Champions League now as well, City?
But that's who the bookies have as favourites.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying to you. That's all I'm saying to you. Writing Barcelona off again, like you did a couple of years ago.
Oh, yeah.
You lot.
Really well since then. Well done. Well done. Yeah. Losing to Roma. Mighty Roma.
What do you mean?
Well, that's it. That's how that season's been defined over the last 2 years.
What?
Losing to Roma, losing to Liverpool.
I get that, but they won the league twice and Real Madrid would take that.
Of course they would.
Right. Well, it's not.
Barcelona would have taken winning 3 Champions Leagues in a row.
Of course they would have, but it's not. But so it's not been that bad. I get said they've got problems, but you're sitting. The way you're having the discussion is if it's over. They've got nothing to play for this year.
Well, they've got the Copa del Rey.
But there's also a question. Sorry, I was going to say. There is also a question of direction and of progression. Okay, and so by that I mean if you look at Barcelona's squad and you look at the players that are helping them through the last 2 league titles, for example, who are leading them through that, I think it's almost impossible to find a genuinely unequivocal, successful signing since 2014. So since then, there isn't a single player, and maybe Frankie de Jong will be this player, and maybe Antoine Griezmann will be this player, although it's very early to judge those two. But there isn't a player since the summer in which Ter Stegen, Luis Suarez turned up, in which you would say, they bought this guy and he was without doubt a success. And so you don't just see what they've won, you see where it's going. And so you see a season in which they win the league, and then another season in which win the league, and then this season when you say, well, what's been added to that squad? What's getting better? And while nothing is being added, that yet at least, that you say this is an unqualified success, you say, well, Piqué is older, Messi is older, Suarez is older and is now injured, Busquets is older and slower, there's no two ways about that. They haven't resolved the issue at right back. Jordi Alba is not as dominant as he once was. So it's not just about what they have won over the last 2 years, it's about where that group of players and where that team is going and what they have done to prevent it reaching that kind of breaking point and then having a really significant problem, because these problems were there through success, and of course they get worse as time goes by, and that hasn't really been foreseen or dealt with. And so, as I say, in that sense, yes, this is problematic. But it's problematic with the planning, not necessarily what's on the pitch yet. And they can still win the Champions League. Yeah, of course they can. Greece won the European Championship.
I can't handle your negativity, sir.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN+.